Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonja Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
You're watching National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasts, 70 shows, and a 3.5-star rating on Roku TV.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. This is 12/15/24. Good morning, gentlemen. I'm filling in for Mac today. Mac, we miss you. Get well soon. I'm here with Jack, J-Train, and the one and only Keith Engle, and this is the Big Football Show. Happy Sunday, guys. How are y'all?
Doing well. Keith.
That's good. Good, Jack. You doing well?
I'm doing just as well as I was when I saw you right before we went on the air. No change.
Well, I have to ask for the audience. Keith, how's it going with you today?
I'm doing well. Can you guys hear me okay now? I'm having a
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining me this morning. Got a lot of the news to cover from the Thursday night game, previewing today's picks, as well as a little college football news. And since Keith has to hop off at 8:30, we'll start with him. Heisman Trophy, Gwinnett County's own Travis Hunter. Any surprise there, Keith? Crowned yesterday.
I'm surprised the gap wasn't more. That's all. I thought it was going to be even bigger win than that. It was a pretty big win. But I think it's been pretty clear for weeks that Travis Hunter was going to win this, and it was a matter of who would finish second. Ward, I think Cam Ward hurt himself a lot the end of the season. Probably he may have dropped himself from second to fourth, frankly, but no surprise here. And Travis Hunter's been the best player in the country going into the season, and he's the best player in the country throughout the season. So well-deserved honor. And it appears he's going to actually even play in his bowl game. We'll see whether that happens or not, but he hasn't opted out yet.
Hey, Keith, I was a little shocked the vote was as close as it was when it came in. I mean, I assumed he was a lock to win the award going in. And if I was one of the other candidates, I was going to hold out very little hope of winning it. And I would be resigned to Travis Hunter winning, the Heisman. And then you hear the final tally, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It was within range of an actual upset. And that would have been the talk of the sports world today had Hunter somehow now won it, look into the voters and this and that. And can you imagine Dion's loud voice? It would have really been top of the news.
Yeah, it probably would have been top of the news. And again, I was surprised myself with that lack of gap between first and second. But Giante had a great season. It would have been very interesting if Giante had played someplace besides Boise State. This might have been even a closer vote because it's let's look, if he played at Georgia or someplace that's on TV, national TV every week, right? Colorado's not. Colorado doesn't play on national TV every single week, and Hunter still had that exposure because of Dion in a way. But
could that have worked against him in the voting? An anti-Dion faction?
It could have, for sure. And maybe that's what made it as close as what it was. I'm sure there are some people that may have, again, whether you like the coach or not, I mean, you shouldn't judge the player based on anything other than the player. So, and by all accounts, Travis Hunter is a good player, and we have not seen any off-field issues or anything else like that. So we shouldn't judge him based on we like or don't like his coach. But it does come into play, human nature, right? So,
yeah,
and Jack, I can see that it's very close. I can see why it was very close. Giante is like 200 yards away from Barry Sanders' single season record. So, I mean, he balled out. Like Keith said, if he played at another team, it might have been closer than that, and he may have escaped with a win on that one.
It may have, but if you look at Hunter, you tell me the last time there was a two-way player like that on any level.
No, Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson.
Well, think of how long ago that was, and think of how great Charles Woodson's in the NFL Hall of Fame. And you notice at the end when he gave everyone a hug, the biggest and longest and most emotional hug was for Deion Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to give Deion Sanders his due, getting this kid from Jackson State, recruiting him, and then he comes with Deion to Colorado. To give Deion Sanders a lot of credit here, too.
He flipped the kid from Florida State to Jackson. That's what is amazing here, right? And he's got a love for the guy. And people can think what they want. And Deion sometimes turns me off too, but Deion has found a way to get this done, and players love him. The thing about Hunter and Woodson, they're still a different player. It's decades since you've seen a guy like Hunter, because he played 1,400 plays this year. I guarantee you Charles Woodson didn't play 1,400 plays in 19. What was that? I can't remember the year. 97?
97. Yep.
Yeah. Great player, but he didn't play on offense nearly as much as Hunter played. So
yeah, and I want to also add, Prime does have what they call the Prime effect. I mean, like Keith says, I kind of was a little turned off by all the theatrics last season. Looks like they've turned their season around. Not enough to make playoffs, but very competitive this year. They were 9-3. And I personally know someone who their nephew had committed to the Ohio State, had a weekend last weekend with Coach Prime, and now he's going to Colorado because of the Prime effect. He said Prime was very down to earth, just more like a father figure type. And sometimes coaches come in, they kind of, form this mentorship bond. Keith, do you think that plays a role in where, our players stand today? We talked about how Travis Hunter is very well-rounded so far. We've seen a little static here and there with the Colorado team as far as the locker room last year, but this year seems to be a little bit more enmeshed and in sync. You just don't hear that much. You just hear stuff on the field when they're winning the game.
It's stable, and maybe it's because he's brought so many, veteran. I kind of derided him bringing Warren Sapp in there, but Sapp had a great effect on this team, I think. And he's got a lot of other NFL-type coaches in that locker room, and maybe that has stabilized that part of the game. We saw a couple of different things with Shedeur here and there, but nothing really major that, you can really point a finger at and say these guys are out of control. He seems to be a good mentor of young men, despite all the other things, right? I've had to eat my words. I thought this team would finish 5-7 this year, and I said he needed to start winning. Well, he's winning. He's getting players. He's flipped one of the top quarterbacks in the country to come there next year. That's why I don't think he's going anywhere. And because he's got a good thing going here, and I think he's got his eye on one job, and it's all the way across the country in Florida. So we'll see whether that ever happens or not.
And good morning, Matt. Thanks for tuning in as always, and thank you for the compliment.
Well, I want to say yesterday, Keith, I don't want to skip college football quite yet. I'm scared you can go right to the NFL, which is my first love over college football. But yesterday, watching the Army-Navy game, I want to get Keith's take on that. I wasn't impressed with Army. I was very disappointed considering the year they had, how ineffective their offense was, against Navy.
This game wasn't even as close as 31-13. I mean, they ate them up on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. In my mind, they outgained them, 300 and almost 400 yards to 150 or 170. They dominated this game, but it's still a fun football game to watch. It's the only game you're going to watch that is for the pure love of sport. There's not a pro prospect on that field yesterday. There's no NIL players. There's no portal players. There's nothing except unadulterated love of the game, and it's fun to watch that no matter what the score. And this is the first time I like to root for both sides. I never bet a side in this game. I bet the over. It's the first time only the second time in 20 games it's gone over 40 points. But Navy was just dominant yesterday for sure. Kudos to them. And both teams are playing in bowl games this year. And this is probably the best season combined for these two teams in, 60 years about. So great job by both teams.
And hi, Excalibur Force, blessings to you as well. Keith, we got a week of bowl games. Some of the lesser known bowl games got the New Orleans Bowl, the LA Bowl, Boca Raton Bowl, Frisco Bowl. Those look like those any games or just something they kind of put in place to kind of just as a placeholder this time of year.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally never heard of all of these bowls, honestly.
Well, most of them have been renamed to just all they are is the sponsor is all you see in the name of the bowl, except for a handful of them. And it's a filler. Yes, it's a filler. There's way too many bowl games. It's to fill ESPN's schedule, and you'll see these stadiums half full. There's too many games. There's 5 and 7 teams playing. I think James and I had a little exchange on this a week or two ago, and or on my college football show, I don't remember. But I've said this forever. There's just too many bowl games. When you're taking 6 and 6 teams, that's bad enough. Now we're taking 5 and 7 teams because there's not enough 6 and 6 teams. You've also got these dropping. Army's opponent was supposed to be Marshall in the Independence Bowl. It's now
I saw that
because their coach left and 25 kids immediately left the program.
That was crazy.
I was looking at the opt-outs today, and it's already out of control for most of these bowl games. Everything's got just 10 or 15 guys at least. This is already that have dropped out, and there'll be more along the way. So yes, there's way too many games, and I could probably cut it in half, and maybe that wouldn't be enough. I don't know. So
yeah, and Louisiana Tech also is going to be filling in at the Independence Bowl. I mean, after Marshall opts out, so I guess they always have a team on standby to fill in. Like, I don't even know is there a lottery or something? Like, okay, if this person doesn't go forward, this team doesn't go forward, then you're next in line, or how does that work?
They do have a contingency for if teams drop out, because this was never a thing until a couple of years ago, but it happens almost every year where a team either declines a bowl bid up front or has to drop out later on. That's which is why you end up with 5 and 7 teams, because you need to be 6 and 6 to get a bowl game. And here's one thing. There is one good thing about all these bowl games, and those teams that make a bowl game, they get to have more practices. It's good for the kids that are coming back next year and whatnot. They get extra practices. But other than the gamblers, ESPN, and the coaches, they all like these extra bowl games. Nobody else does. So
no one does, and so we've given that just as much attention as college sports has, other than the Heisman, Kinging, crowning, and so forth. Let's switch gears a little bit to NFL, not a little bit, but a lot of it. NFL, your Patriots today, are they going to pull it out, Keith?
Patriots for a change get the 4:25 window, which is odd for them because they're so bad. We get the 1:00 window every week, but they're playing out west, so you have to put them at 4:00. Arizona probably wouldn't want to play at 10 in the morning. I think the Patriots have a chance to cover today. Actually, the Cardinals are okay. They've had a good run. They're very up and down. Patriots have played better football. They've only been blown out of one game. They just find a way to lose, like bad teams do at the end of games. I think they're 6. I almost took them today in our pick 'em, but I didn't. I think they're 6.5 point underdog in the Bet US numbers anyway.
And I forgot to mention, Keith, real quick. Bill Belichick, former Patriot coach, is now, and it's so ironic, Drake May, Carolina quarterback that comes to the Patriots. Now the former coach of the Patriots is now signing a 3-year with the Tar Heels as their coach.
I will stick to my guns here that, Bill Belichick's talk about, I've always wanted to coach college football. He wanted to always coach college football when he found out there was no NFL job for him, which seems to be the case. Now the story out that he even reached out to the Jets, shockingly enough. Which I don't know why they think they would even talk to him. But his people knew that he had no place to go, and he's going there. And it's very interesting. Keep an eye out. I have never seen a clause in a contract that says, but his buyout would be very low anyway. But it's $10 million until next year at July 1st. We'll not even have coached the game yet. It's $10 million, and after that, it drops to $1 million. Bill Belichick, he says he's not there as a stopover or rebuild his reputation. I don't believe it for a second. That $1 million buyout after next July 1st tells me if he has a really good season year one and somebody shows some interest, they may never show interest in Bill Belichick again on the NFL level. He's burned a lot of bridges, but he's keeping his options open. It's very obvious to me.
Yeah, James, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I lost power for a few seconds, and then I didn't go off intentionally, and then I came back on. But it's weird that when I went off, Keith was talking about the New England Patriots. When I came back on, he was talking about Belichick.
They
Talk
rehired
about a legacy
the
being,
Patriots hired
being
Belichick.
linked. I mean, I want to ask Keith, does Belichick's age play a big role in it, or is it a question of him commanding all this power? Because any head coaching job Belichick takes, he has to bring in his own people. He has to bring in Matt Patricia, McDaniels, maybe Joe Judge, etc.
Well, as far as coaches go, any coach should be allowed to bring in his people, or he's not going to be successful. If you're tying his hands behind the back, if you don't. As far as power goes, that's a different story. All these organizations want to protect their power structure, especially the guys in that power structure. So I think that and his age all work against him in the NFL. Plus, again, he was so successful for so long, and he just kind of went against the norm so many times that I think teams are a little wary of him, and he's burned a lot of bridges in the NFL. Look, the Jets are, exhibit A. The Giants probably are exhibit B. I don't know that teams want to take that on. Plus, as we said, it's going to be a short-term fix. He's not going to be there 6-7 years. Even if he's successful, he's not going to coach till he's 80 years old.
Don't be so sure about that. Some people are lifers, and they're going to keep going on and on and on. I mean, we have a president of the United States who's around 82 years old now, so Belichick can go a decade more if he wants. Belichick has shown loyalty to his people. So if I were young GM, I don't know how James feels about this. If we were young GM, should we be scared of Belichick, or should we just embrace him, hire him, let's soak in the knowledge? We can learn so much from this guy, and if we have a good relationship with him, he's going to be loyal to us.
I mean, I just think that age is going to have a lot to play with it. I mean, the older you get, unfortunately, the more disparity and distance you have between young players to be able to relate to them. And so, clearly you see most coaches, are either in their 40s, 50s, or younger. And it's just going to be tough. But what I will say is recruiting, a lot of times kids want to see bling, and he's got six rings to go into a living room and show like, hey, I have some level of success. And so maybe recruiting will be better for North Carolina, and they'll have an opportunity in that conference to be able to make some noise. And I'm pretty sure defensively, he still, has the chops to be able to create a really good top 10 defense in college. So it just depends. But I think the age is really going to go against him, though, with young players. And then the portal. You see why Nick Saban escaped. The portal is just really doesn't match well with older guys who have been on top for a long time. And, because they were able to keep players and have a system, to be able to just reload and reload and reload. You just can't do that anymore because you can't keep those 5-star talent there.
We got here, Jack, when you kind of had like the power disruption, because we were talking about the Patriots, and we kind of segued back for a moment because I thought how ironic that Drake May, the former quarterback of Carolina, basically did a switcheroo with Belichick going to his alma mater. So that's kind of how we got that plug in. But let's just make sure right now we keep it, because we want to make sure we get Keith's picks before he gets out of here. J Train, I'll kind of switch it to you for the next few minutes, so you can get with Keith on that.
So Keith, you have you picked Los Angeles Chargers, Denver, and Houston. Tell us more about that and why you picked them.
The Chargers are playing really good football, playing at home against an up and down Tampa team. I never like teams that have to travel one way or the other across the country. More so, I guess, west to east. But the Belichick. Sorry, I'm still stuck on Belichick. Harbaugh, another polarizing figure in the world of football, does everything. He wins everywhere he goes, and he's turned his team around faster than anybody could have thought. I think this team is a legitimate. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a dangerous out in the playoffs, and I like them at home -3 here a lot today.
And what about Denver?
Denver's playing some great football. I wasn't a big proponent of this team early in the year. Sean Payton is, again, I think showing his chops, because I wasn't a big Denver proponent because of Bo Nix. I didn't think he was going to translate necessarily. And it looked early on in the season like he would not, but things have clicked here in the last couple of months. And Denver's playing as good as anybody in the AFC, at least, and maybe in football the last month. And I like them a lot against the Dolphins, who are, again, this is a team that just can't seem to find the right tone. They don't seem to have an identity. They struggle a lot for an identity, and they don't play well on the road. I like like Denver here because of, I think the coaching matchup favors Denver, and I think Nix is probably better than Tua right today as we speak.
Well, actually, I think you had those picks right, but just the wrong teams. Houston's playing Miami, and Denver's playing Indianapolis. Yeah.
I had them listed second where I was looking at. You're right. Yeah, playing Indianapolis. My bad. It's the same kind of thing. Another team that can't find identity. They can't find. Richardson is not the answer. He's the most inconsistent guy in the world. Probably everybody talks about the bad first-round picks. He's a bad first-round pick, and the Colts are struggling here. And I'm going to have to say the same thing about Miami when they get to Houston. But I don't like the Colts, especially on the road here. And the comments about the Broncos still stand, obviously.
Cool. I agree with all your picks here.
And I like and Houston's starting to gel. We talked about teams that could surprise. I don't know if it was, I think it was here maybe last week, teams that could come on late in the season. Houston is a candidate to do that as they start to kind of get healthy. Joe Mixon has played very, very well there, as Stroud has kind of stepped back, taken a little step back, not a huge step back, a little sophomore slump, but not terrible. I think this is a team that if it gels here the last 4 weeks of the season, they'll be a dangerous out in the playoffs. They get Nico Collins healthy now. Losing Diggs hurts a little bit, but not as much as people think. I don't, in my mind. And it's a team that I like to keep my eye on as the season goes on here. And Miami's kind of playing out the string here as we finish out the last month of the season.
It's funny because we talked about that with the Texans last year, how great they looked. You have the off season, you have other teams have an opportunity to watch film on them, and they have done exactly what you guys said. There's a sophomore slump with CJ Stroud, but hopefully they definitely bounce back from that. Keith, looks like Matt Crosby is out with the Raiders. A lot of injuries this time of year. We only have, a couple of weeks left in the season, so we're seeing injuries throughout. The NFL did find the lineman that hit Brock Purdy the other day. What a hit. And then we know Trevor Lawrence took a hit a couple of weeks ago. He's out not only with concussion, but for the season because he's having to have a surgery. It didn't elaborate if that was related to the hit or not. But this is just that time of year that, if you have a team that's healthy and they are very competitive, like the NFC North is a very competitive division, this is the time of season. Most of the time we see, less play with your more stars, your starters and people that are your playmakers. But right now it's such a stiff competition. Nobody's able to rest their main starters.
Yeah, and if you're out of it, like the Raiders in Crosby's situation or the Jaguars in Lawrence's situation, you're not going to risk them or hurting themselves further. If it's an injury they could maybe typically play with in a different situation, you're better off shutting them down. As these teams are probably looking to tank anyway, which I hate, but they're, this helps them do it on a more legitimate basis.
No, players aren't looking to tank. Come on, stop this, Keith. If it's the last game of the season and the coach knows he's going to be back and they know a draft choice is at stake, they're drafting very high. I understand that. The Giants playing a Tommy DeVito, for example, but come on, no one's
tanking. They didn't say nobody. So organizations don't tank, right? Players.
With a few games to left. You think the players are going to ease up? They're battling for their own jobs.
Jack, there's a big difference here. Players play. Players will always play to win. Organizations can manipulate players and situations to make it more, give them a better chance to lose games. I don't believe in tanking. As a fan, I don't want my team ever to lose. I don't root for my team to lose ever. Organizations do, though, and it's very
For
odd.
one given game, like what happened years ago with the Eagles and Washington, for one given game, yeah, you could pull back a little bit, but
players were going to try to win. I don't disagree with that. I will never say players.
They're not tanking.
I didn't say
no
that.
one is tanking. You're putting the players out there. They're doing the best they can.
But you,
Well, Greg, what he's saying, if you're taking a player like Max Crosby, if they were in playoff contention, you think that they would put him on the side and just allow him to go ahead? He'd be playing. He'd be playing.
100%.
Yeah, broke ankle and all. And good morning, David.
Yeah. I'm only talking about organization and mindsets, right? They're always going to go out there. The players that actually.
No. I understand with Max Crosby, if he's borderline, I can understand them maybe holding him out, perhaps. But is Antonio Pierce, is he going to be back next year? If he knows he's going to be back, that's an issue. He could hold a player out, feeling if the Raiders go number one, they could draft Shedeur Sanders.
It's not always going to be a decision.
Otherwise, why would Antonio Pierce want to cooperate, and to lose a game? It would make no sense.
That's one of the reasons that Flores got fired in Miami, is because he wouldn't go along with the organization's plan to tank games at the end of the season. That was one of the reasons.
No. For his lawsuit.
Forget his lawsuit.
No, but he did. It was never proven that the owner said tank a game, lose a game, and do anything like that.
They're going to leave themselves open and have tapes of them saying, let's tank games. But Flores said at the time that he didn't go along with the organization's thought process at the end of the season. That was part of it. It's not part of the lawsuit. But again, he got fired because one of the reasons, and it was very obvious at the time, they wanted to lose. Again, coaches want to win too. I don't disagree with that. But they can only coach with the players that the organization gives them to play with on the field. And you make those decisions on a whole, on a higher level than Antonio Pierce, who's not going to save his job no matter what right now, but in my mind. But, look at, yes, once you get to the game day, everybody's trying to win. I agree with that 100%. Everybody.
Yeah, and before you hop off, Keith, because I know you got about 2 minutes left with us, I did want to also get your thoughts on it. Some rumblings going on that Jacoby Brissett may be signing as a backup to Drake May.
Well, Jacoby's there now, and he may stay. I mean, he's not, unless he's not going to find a job as a starter. I mean, unless it's a bridge, which was this was supposed to be to Drake May, and he played a lot less time than we thought he would. I wouldn't doubt that they like Jacoby. I think he fits this role. I think he can help Drake May as a mentor and be the new clipboard holder. Jack always throws.
Drake May, reportedly, Keith, Drake May showed great leadership when Jacoby Brissett was benched. He reached out to Jacoby Brissett to see that he was okay with everything, what he could do. He was showing leadership then. Jacoby Brissett said, I'm fine, worry about other things. He said it in a nice way to Drake May.
Brissett knows his position there is to help Drake May become a better football player. That's his position now, and he knows that.
Veterans are always holding out hope they can somehow make the job theirs. It still doesn't cushion the blow when they are eventually sat down.
Yeah. Well, again, somebody's got to carry that clipboard, and some are better at it than others, and help the guy in front of them as well as and want to play. I get that, but
he's actually faded in the background since the October 6th when they had that loss to the Dolphins, and he kind of just let that roll. Keith, what are your thoughts on this comment we have up here about Dave Campbell's Texas high school football page is insightful to keep up with national recruiting? I don't understand what that really is.
CA find some of this. I'll check that out and see. I'm sure it'll be on the show after this, and I'll dig into it a little deeper. I'm not sure what he's referring there to.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for jumping on. You guys check him out. He's on his sports page coming up here at 8:30. Check him out, TGI Sports Talk. He's on every day, y'all. Great show. He's on the Roku app. Download that like we talked about earlier. Keith, have an amazing week.
Enjoy the game, guys. See you next week.
Okay.
You too, Mariah.
All right, y'all. Keith Engle, everybody. All right, Jack. Let's shift gears here. the Jets are just not where we thought they were going to be. What are your thoughts as a fan? I know it's been very frustrating. I can definitely empathize with you on that. The ups and downs, a lot of close calls, and having a star such as Aaron Rodgers at the helm of that team, even bringing in Devontae Adams. What do the Jets need to do today to pull out this win?
Well, it's funny. I think I mentioned to James last week, just hypothetically making believe we were lost at sea. We were saved. We came back. We had a chance to look at the news for the first time. We got lost at sea right before the football season began. And James and myself would immediately go to the standings, and I'd see the Jets at 3-10. I mean, flabbergasted. I mean, it's there's a saying in sports, Sonja, you're better than your record indicates. And yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Jets are 3-10. They've had opportunities to close out so many games. I mean, last week, Aaron Rodgers did play well. Their defense let them down at the end. There have been other games where their offense is stalled, and it's hard to explain. Sometimes you just can't make moves. You just got to live with the players you have and just do a little better. We keep hearing the term closing out games, and the Jets have been the worst team in the NFL with doing that. Today they play the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're playing against arguably the worst starting quarterback. He's the starter for the rest of the year. That's why I call him a starter, Mac Jones. Had a promising rookie year with New England, and then it all fell apart. He's been awful. And I can't see him doing anything with the Jet defense today. I mean, I can't see the Jets losing this type of game, at Jacksonville. It would be pretty pathetic, if that happened. And there's a lot at stake. We were talking about tanking a little while ago. The Jets are 3-10. The Jaguars are 3-10. The Jaguars obviously aren't going to be in the market for a young quarterback because they got Trevor Lawrence, but the Jets would be, and draft position's important. You slip a few spots and you're drafting number 7 overall, you're not quite getting the elite player you want. I mean, if it's a non-quarterback, of course, Travis Hunter is going to be the first player to go. He's going to be very appealing to a team that doesn't need a quarterback, the first one drafting. So in that sense, as fans, we're like looking to our teams and figuring, do we really want them to win that badly? Do we want them to have a better draft position? The Jets at 3-10, just think of it. They have to win, and they have to run the table the rest of the year to go 7-10 to just match their record of the last couple of years, which has been a colossal disappointment. And, I just don't know what's happened this year with the Jets because they had the right players in the right positions. What more could they have done except play well on the field? That's what it all comes down to at the end. And it, just hasn't happened.
Yeah, and Breece Hall is suiting up today. You guys is running back. Against everything else, they're definitely giving it a solid shot for all intensive purposes. But like you said, we're what, 2 weeks before the season's over. Winning out is not that big of a deal at this point. But it would look better to try to be 7-10 as opposed to, just losing out the remainder of the season. Jay Train and I always talk about, teams that purposely, without saying it, lose out so that they can get a higher draft pick. I'm like Keith, I don't want my team to lose any game. I don't care who's up for the number 1 position. I want to win as many games as possible. What are your thoughts on that, with knowing that the Jets are ranked down there with my Panthers? And this has been a season that we have a lot of teams that are not, we have the cream of the crop way high. There's such a big differential. And then we have several teams that are bottom tier this year. It's not just like last year how my Panthers were the worst in the league. We have several teams that are tied for like worst in the league right now, Jack. What are your thoughts on that top position? We don't know, is the quarterback even a position you all want? You've invested in Aaron Rodgers. He's a veteran. He's supposed to be that quarterback.
You have no choice but to stick with Aaron Rodgers. Like the way people say, oh, get rid of him, get another quarterback. Then I hear the insanity, play Tyrod Taylor. It's a colossal waste of time. If you
Crazy.
play Tyrod Taylor, he
Yes.
might win a game or two extra. It is a wasted time, just like with the Panthers playing Andy Dalton this year. It gives you a quick lift, but it was a waste of time. Yeah, and then Bryce Young got it together. I can understand if the strategy was sit Bryce down for a few weeks and then we're going to bring him back. But that wasn't the Panthers' strategy. The Panthers' strategy was maybe they were going to move on from Bryce Young altogether. And when they finally had to come back to Bryce Young because Andy Dalton got hurt, Bryce Young's been playing well. And now the Panthers are thinking, maybe he is our guy after all, which he probably is. But they found that out by accident the second time around. Yeah. And the Jets will have no choice but to stick with Aaron Rodgers realistically. You don't want to bring in a guy like Jameis Winston. I flirted with the idea myself. He's a pick-six machine. He'll make bad decisions. He's not going to be your quarterback of the future. He's good as a backup. He can win as a backup. And these guys are going to bring in like Joe Flacco or Carson Wentz or this or that, Jimmy Garoppolo. Come on. And
we can all agree that Aaron Rodgers got to finish out the season. And I also agree with you about whether or not, it doesn't matter right now. I mean, this is where they are. I wouldn't play Tyrod Taylor at this juncture. Just, hopefully Aaron Rodgers, if he stays with the team, they do better because they're a colossal disappointment, unfortunately. But while we're here with you, Jack, let's go ahead and go over your picks. You picked New Orleans, Baltimore, and Denver. Tell us why.
Yeah, New Orleans, Derek Carr's out. I don't know that this bolster my selection or not. What is it? It was 7 points before Derek Carr was out. What is it now?
New Orleans is +8. +8,
and they're playing at home against the Commanders. Just think of your team, James. They're 8-point underdogs at home against the Washington Commanders. The Commanders aren't that good despite their record, okay? And just think of it. But I'm going to
taking command.
Yeah, I mean, their stock has fallen from they showed a little promise early in the season that, they could contend. The crazy part about it is if the Saints win today, they could actually get back into contention for the division title. I mean, they're a couple of games out now. And if, Tampa Bay loses against the LA Chargers, which is a distinct possibility, the Saints will be a game behind. I'm not sure what the tiebreak is. I think that's yet to be determined. So it's a very big game. So in a way, the Saints season could be on the line today. I mean, the Commanders in a comfortable position. They're probably finishing second and getting in as a wild card, regardless of what happens today, even though they still have their work cut out for them, after today. But I like the Saints with the 8 points, with everything on the line today. I have to feel with Coach Rizzo, they are playing hard. They're playing
one with him. Look, do they win this game or cover the spread? I think they cover the spread. I just don't think they win the game. We got Marshawn Lattimore coming back, and he's actually playing, so he's making his debut against his former team. He's arguably, when he's healthy, one of the best top 5 corners in the league. And then you also have Jaden Daniels. The Saints have no effect against a dual threat quarterback. Even Drew Lock got 59 yards against the Saints, and they almost came back and won the game. It wasn't for a blocked field goal with the Giants last week. And so, look, New Orleans, I don't think they win this game. The one inkling of hope they might have is that they're going against the worst run defense. So if Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller can get something going, they can keep them out the game. Then keep the offense off the field. Then maybe they have an opportunity. But in playoff, as far as playoff contention, the next game they got to play. If they win this game, they're lucky enough to win this game and stay in it with Atlanta and Tampa Bay. They got to go up to Green Bay. It's just not going to happen.
I want to put a plug in real quick, Jack. I want to put a plug in real quick, Jack. Mac is watching. Hi, Mac. He says thank you. So he saw our get well wishes for him. We love you, Mac. We can't wait to have you back. Jack, he says you cannot pick. And hello to Miss Linda as well.
if we all had to compare ourselves to NFL teams, how we're picking games, considering what I expected of myself, what I did in the past, you know who I'd be? I'd be like the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm having the same year picking as they're having playing. They just never got going. I never got going this year. And it just, looks like I'm on the verge of being knocked out of our own individual playoffs picking, the games. It's a long year. But my second pick here, Ravens against the Giants. There's a term in boxing called if a champions, let's call the Ravens kind of championship caliber team. They're not champions, but a championship caliber team. Then they're contenders. Then they're gatekeepers, meaning middle of the pack, and then they're club fighters, bottom of the barrel. Giants are club fighters going against the championship caliber team. The Ravens are going to roll over them. I'm not going to overanalyze the game. Come on, are you kidding me? You think the Giant offense is going to do much against the Ravens? You think the Giant defense is going to keep Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and their receivers in check? Come on.
Minus 16 and a half, though, Jim?
I like
Minus 16 and a half?
37-7. How's that for score? 37-7. I think it gets ugly, at MetLife Stadium. Very ugly there.
I got to take a screenshot of this so we can talk about this later.
Against Apollo Creed in the first one. So maybe the Giants will play the game of their life and lose by 3 points.
Max
the Italian Stallion.
Rocky was a club fighter. That's from Mac.
And then the Lions against the Bills. Did I see it wrong that the Bills are not favored by a point?
They're not favored by a point, right?
The Lions are favored a point and a half or so, right?
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of people think this is a preview of the Super Bowl. I got to think the Lions, are going to be a little more up for this game than normal because it is the Buffalo Bills. It is an elite opponent and only a game up on Philadelphia. Also, as far as getting the bye, and that bye is so important to me because you only have to play 2 games at home, both at home to get to the Super Bowl. And if you don't have the bye, you have to play 3 games. You have to play an extra week. You have to win an extra game. And if you think that doesn't mean anything, just look at the Cowboys last year against the Packers, having to play the extra game that they lost. And also, there's a good chance you don't get your conference championship game at home. So, it gets to the point late in the year where that bye is really important. And this is going to give us a good idea how good these teams are. I mean, we know how good the Lions are. They've been the best team in the NFL this year. How good the Bills are. I sold them short this year. They've surprised me. They have been a lot better than I thought they were. But now they're going against the most elite team in the NFL this season. So let's call this a statement game, for the Bills. I mean, the Bills can lose this game. They're 10-3. If they lose it competitively, if they lose a game like 24-21, fine, great. But if the Bills get blown out the way they were against the Ravens early in the year, that would be a little discouraging.
I knew not to pick that game. I'm going to be straight up. I knew not to pick that game because as much as I believe in the Lions, we may be looking at a Super Bowl preview. I couldn't even get the word out, y'all. And we may be looking at a Super Bowl preview, and this is the time of year that we just get those sneaky wins that we never saw coming. But this is one that the Ravens have struggled, the Bills have struggled. We've seen everybody, and Jay Tran and I talked about it Friday. I mean, let's not forget about teams like Pittsburgh. This may not be our Super Bowl preview at all, but the Lions are definitely dominating. They're the highest ranked team in the NFL right now with only 1 loss. And you got teams out there that are just waiting to be that second team with just these little bit of weeks we have left to try to get everybody solidified and just be like, hey, we knocked them off. Kind of like knocking off the Chiefs when they were undefeated for a little while. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty big. I don't know, J Train. I have no idea.
I got Buffalo winning that close game, but I could see the Lions winning that game because they're coming off a bye, like as Jack alluded to, and also Buffalo played a really tough game. They had a tough loss in Los Angeles against the Rams last week, 42-44. They're probably tired too as well from that game. So you're going up against another unit, a much better team in the Lions. So there's at home in Detroit. So there's a possibility they could. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think they're just too close in contention. They can't lose anymore. I think the motivation, and then you got two elite quarterbacks playing against each other. I just like Josh Allen a lot better than Jared Goff, and I think that their backs against the wall right now. They got to stay in the close race with Kansas City, and then of course
games behind. They got the tiebreaker. Kansas City. Let's face it, they've been lucky this year. I mean, they're the exact opposite of the Jets. When you think of it, the Jets have played nearly as well as Kansas City, but Kansas City's won every close game. The Jets have lost every close game. But if Buffalo could get to within one game of Kansas City, if Kansas City slips up in their trap game today at Cleveland, and Buffalo beats the Lions, Buffalo's only one game behind. The pressure's on Kansas City because if the AFC Championship game is in Buffalo, even though Kansas City traditionally shown they can win on the road, they beat Buffalo at Buffalo last year. A playoff game would favor Buffalo, and Buffalo against anyone. Buffalo would have an advantage there.
I agree. Sonja, let's go to your picks. I see we got about 14 minutes left here. You pick Atlanta, Carolina, and Kansas City. Tell us why.
So Atlanta's playing the Raiders. Max Crosby is out. The Raiders have sucked all season long. I mean, Atlanta should at a minimum cover the spread. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been donating balls to everybody. I think last week he forgot that he wasn't a Viking anymore. He threw so many interceptions. But I've got Atlanta because honestly, the rest of these games were very hard for me to go with because, like I said, the upset factor. So I just decided that I'm going to play it safe with the picks that I got. Carolina, believe it or not, I'm not picking because that's my team. I'm picking because that point spread is off. Let me pull up the point spread unless you have it in front of you.
They're -3. They're pegged to win.
I feel like, we are for the first time in 2 years, 2 seasons, we are favored. That's the first time in 2 seasons that Vegas and everybody else has picked us to win. I think the 3 points, first of all, we're going to win at least by a touchdown. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but it could be, especially without Dakota Rain Prescott. And Dallas is on the road. It's a little rainy down here on the East Coast. The Cowboys play in a nice little covered stadium. So I think that they will win outright on that. I think they're going to cover the spread and win for real. Go Panthers. And then my third team was, I just had it.
Kansas City.
Oh, yeah, Kansas City. Kansas City should win, honestly. I mean, they've been having a lot of close calls. It's always the chefs and the refs. That's what I say. They're going to make sure they get it. And they're playing Cleveland. Jameis Winston with these nice donations he's been given as well. I think he was on Instagram saying he's been praying that he to God about his interceptions. That lets you know how bad his interceptions are. And so they are favored at Kansas City is -4 at Cleveland. I think that either way, they're going to cover the spread and they're going to cover that game. Kansas City is going to be going to the playoffs without a doubt. They're probably going to the AFC Championship. In my opinion, it's going to come down to them in Pittsburgh, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to come down to Buffalo. I think Josh Allen, even though he looks good, I think he's had a couple of close calls that I just was not comfortable with saying that he would be there. I would love for him to be there as opposed to Kansas City, but I just don't see it.
Well, I agree with 2 of your picks in Atlanta and Carolina, but my upset special is Cleveland taking down Kansas City. I have to agree with Jack in regards to them playing very close games and winning their close games. But Jameis Winston, he can do enough to give you a win, but he can also do enough to cost you a close game. I just think he does enough here at home to get a escape with a win with an upset. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, they got the home field advantage. I'm just not comfortable because I just feel like it's the end of the season, and I feel like Jameis is kind of like we've seen consistently increased amount of interceptions as the season has progressed. And now that we're at the end, they know they don't have anything to lose. They are, I mean, everybody pretty much is sick of Patrick Mahomes in the AFC division. So maybe as a divisional rival, I don't know. They're not in the same actual division, but they are both AFC. So maybe that plays a part in it, Jay
But
Trent.
that's a certain magic if you play the Kansas City Chiefs and you're a competitor. The Brown players realize they're playing the Chiefs, and that in itself gets them up for the game. Because it's Kansas City, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce. You don't
Right.
think those players in the Cleveland locker room are joking around. You think Taylor Swift is coming to the game.
Oh
They're
yeah.
going to be up for the game. Everyone is up for the Chiefs. It's just the way it is. And
Yeah.
Cleveland's going to be
We
playing
almost
hard.
whooped they run. We got cheated. The Panthers almost whooped they behind.
Yeah,
Well,
Jameis Winston at his best can be brilliant. At his best, at his
yes,
worst,
Yeah.
he can be horrendous. You don't know what version you're getting.
Right.
correct. So let's mention Pags since he wasn't here. We'll just go ahead and mention his picks. He's picked Denver, Buffalo, and the Chargers. Those are really good picks there. And I'm not mad at none of those. I picked Cincinnati, Green Bay, and Arizona. Cincinnati, I just think offensively they're dropping dimes. They're leading in the quarterback yards, touchdowns with Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase is just on a tear himself. T. Higgins, that they offensively they can run with the best of them. Defensively, they might have a little bit. I mean, I think they're ranked 28th or something like that. But going up against Cincinnati is going up against Tennessee. Offensively, they're one of the worst offenses. So their defense should be able to bend but don't break. As long as they could, what I'm interested to see is the offense. This offense going against that number one pass defense in Tennessee. So, but they're in Tennessee, but I just like Cincinnati to cover, and that is -5. That's enough to win. And also going to Green Bay. Green Bay is going to Seattle. I'm just not liking Seattle right now in that division.
Oh.
They're doing well offensively, but I like Green Bay. Jordan Love is coming on strong in the last few games, and he's got like 118 passer rating right now, and he's throwing some touchdowns. He's minimizing his interceptions. I think he does the same thing when he goes up to Seattle. They cover the spread as well.
That point spread
And
is
then,
really low anyway.
yes, very low.
Negative 2.5.
2.5 point. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then my last pick, Arizona, New England. They're at home in Arizona. I just think that Kyler Murray can win that game outright. Just with off his talent alone, he's got a couple decent running backs in James Conner and of course Marvin Harrison Jr. Right now, I don't think that New England can contend with them. It's in the future, maybe. At some point when Drake May is more established, there's a better defense there, and then of course more weapons to help Drake May. But right now, they're not going to be Arizona. They are covered that spread. But do we want to start covering some games here?
Yeah. Start covering some
So,
games.
Jack, tell us what you think. I think we talked about a lot of the games here through our covers. You mentioned the Ravens versus the Giants. What about the Chiefs versus? I mean, we just went over that too. The Chiefs and the Browns. Again, I got that as an upset. Let's talk about the Dolphins versus the Texans.
I'm going to tell you, I picked the Texans to go to the Super Bowl in the beginning of the year.
Oh, wow.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Why not? Why not? Why shouldn't the Texans go to the Super Bowl? The
Oh my
Kansas
God.
City
That's
Chiefs
so bold.
shouldn't have this favoritism. You look at their record and you look at they've been to the Super Bowl 3 of the last 4 years. They're the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. But that's irrelevant as far as this year goes. That's only perception from the outside, how we perceive the Chiefs. The reality is the Chiefs really haven't been one of the best teams in football this year, but they've just winning record-wise. Yeah, you look at
Last
their
year
record.
either.
Wow,
Last
they
year
were
either.
11-1. Last year they were playing poorly, even going into the playoffs. But somehow they figured things out. Teams rarely figure things out the way the Chiefs did last year. The Texans are a team that's going to be peaking as we go along. And I don't go for this narrative, oh, CJ Stroud has sophomore jinx. I mean, he's asked to do less this year because they got Joe Mixon running the ball. He doesn't have to do as much. He doesn't have to be spectacular. But CJ Stroud is going to show up come playoff time. And he's played well this year on balance. He just hasn't been the sensation that he was last year. That's how we're looking at it. And if you eliminate the Chiefs from the AFC, what team do we have in the AFC that anyone should fear? The next closest, is it the Buffalo Bills? Is it the Pittsburgh Steelers? Should anyone fear a Russell Wilson-led offense? Should they really fear that? Think of it, okay? Or the Buffalo Bills, I mean, they played well, but they're not a powerhouse team. We'll know a little more today if they are going to Detroit and beat the Lions. I just like the Texans as a team that could peak and actually get to the Super Bowl. And
what I will say is,
and I think they should beat Miami, who's a little on the soft side.
What I will say is the Texans have a really good defense and a really good pass rush, and they're opportunistic and they do get the ball back. So if you're mentioning that CJ Stroud is going to turn it on in the playoffs, well, he's going to need that defense to help him do that. But I just think there's no way. There's just too much dominance with the other teams. There's a huge disparity between Houston Texans and Buffalo, Kansas City, and even the Ravens. I just don't see that the Houston's in that league right now. They have opportunities.
Best young coach in the NFL. If I told you it was DeMeco Ryans, would you argue with me?
Best young coach, yes. No, I wouldn't argue that. I would say best young coach.
I mean, Mac has a point, though. He said until somebody knocks the Chiefs off, they're going to continue to be the champs. So, we literally have to hope and pray, if you're sick of the Chiefs, that somebody comes in there and David and Goliath them for all intensive purposes.
Sonja, it's the 2024 season. No one is the champion this year. I mean, it's not like they're defending their title. They were the champions the last 2 years. That's theirs forever. It's a brand new year. I admit there's a certain mystique with the Chiefs, but I think this year's been misleading. This 11-1 record could so easily be 6-5.
Yeah, and hi, Robert. Yeah. Good morning. He says that the Texans are nowhere good enough to go to the Super Bowl, and I agree.
I agree too. But what I will say is that in regards to the Chiefs, I mean, to be that to be on top that long, regardless of how you're winning, if you're finding ways to win, you still just got to give credit to them as being the champs. Like Linda said, you got to take them down. As of right now, they're still the champs, They're reigning champs. So until then, we'll have to see. I do see some other teams having potential to beat them, but right now, you just got to say, okay, they're the champs still right now, and they're still leading the conference with only one loss. And of course Detroit on the other side at the same, but still, I mean, are they the best team? Probably not. But again, until you knock them down, when everybody's 0-0 in the playoffs,
they've won games, James, where a field goal hit the goalpost. Otherwise, they would have lost. They won a game where the receiver's foot was out of bounds by a quarter of an inch. Otherwise, they would have lost that game.
And I mean, I agree. And Robert's comment, Robert, I'm not trying to be preferential, but the Panthers did get cheated. I personally saw that freaking catch that was ruled not a catch. Are you kidding me? But like J Train always says, if you play the whole game, you don't have to worry about one play being that one play that you feel like you were cheated out of. So it doesn't come down to the wire. But it's not so much of us being sick of the Chiefs. We're just sick of the refs, chefs and refs. And they're the new New England Patriots. We were sick of them. And, everybody kind of roots for the underdog. But once you see a team win back-to-back, you're like, okay, you got it. deuces. You don't got to come back a third time.
Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Chargers. That's an interesting game to me,
Yeah.
especially coming from the NFC South. I mean, I see a lot of picks. People are picking the Chargers. I think the Chargers at home as well. I think they're going to win that game. They're surprisingly defensively just underrated. They're playing well against teams right now. They're 8-5. I think they're going to be 9-5 after this game is over. But I'm not counting out Baker Mayfield. I really am impressed with what he's doing as well. But I just think that Jim Harbaugh, with what he has just shown that even though he's a mercurial polarizing figure in football altogether, whether it be college or the pros, he's just shown that he's just one of the best to do it. And I think they continue here with a win against the Bucs. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's so close. It's like almost like 50-50 right now, right before game time here this afternoon. Chargers got a 58%. This is just the voting part, 42% for Baker Mayfield. And then, of course, Ladd McConkey, he's suffering with a shoulder injury, but he's going to be working out pre-game. But even if you're coming in and you're not on IR and you're still, going to play the game, you're still kind of limited, especially with a shoulder injury. And he has a knee injury. So he's got a dual whammy coming into this game. They're predicting he's going to play, but that's going to be a huge thing because you're kind of like, okay, I'm playing a little more gingerly so that I'm kind of not getting myself seriously injured. And so that's going to be a huge play. You cannot rule out Baker Mayfield even on the road. You can't be one of these people that say, okay, on the road they're this or at home they're this, because you just can't tell. And these two teams are kind of evenly matched all the way down to their record: 7-6, the Buccaneers, 8-5, the Chargers. You just cannot call them. That's why I did not pick this game, because it's just so many up and down scenarios. And the fact that it's almost a 50-50 that it could go either way. And like you said, Tampa Bay is trying to stay atop the NFC South. The Falcons own the tiebreaker with them. However, they're so close in their record that Tampa Bay themselves have to win out to keep Atlanta from taking over the division. I think that right there may be the motivating factor going into today's game, that the Bucs want to stay solid in their playoff contentions.
So I think, as of right now, look, let's talk about one last game here. And I know we're going to cut the show short a little bit sooner, but let's talk about the Steelers versus the Eagles. That's probably the one game that we really should have mentioned. That's a big game. Man, I got an upset here. Even though you really can't really call it an upset. Both teams are.
No one's an upset in this game.
No one's an upset in this game.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles are favored here, and George Pickens is out. But I like the Steelers because they seem to be, both teams are complete. But I like, for whatever reason, I just think the Steelers have an opportunity to win this game, even with George Pickens out. I think there's an issue right now with in media. We're talking about Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown complaining about not getting the ball, even though they're winning. That's
James, you know what happens sometimes? The player makes a little remark and it gets blown up. I mean, I would hate to be a player in this age of social media. They take things out of context. He said something, AJ Brown, we've got to kind of improve our passing game. And everyone says, oh, he's taking a dig at Jalen Hurts. And maybe him and Jalen Hurts haven't had the best relationship, but AJ Brown's not wrong. If you keep relying on Saquon Barkley mainly, he's not going to carry you through the playoffs, through the Super Bowl. You got to diversify. It's like investing in one stock forever. Eventually, it's going to bite you. You got to diversify. If the Eagles are going to get to the Super Bowl, they got to mix the attack up. They got to get the ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith a little more. I think in today's game, Mike Tomlin's smart. He knows they're going to try to get the ball to A.J. Brown this game. A.J. Brown can't be silent. If I'm A.J. Brown, if I want to have some goodwill, I see Coach Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and say, they're going to think you're going to keep throwing me the ball because of what went on during the week. it would be great if I'm a decoy today. I'm good with it today. You could start getting it to me next week. And Tomlin is going to be focused on A.J. Brown, and it's going to open other things up, But if he tries to force it to A.J. Brown, there could be some problems.
Well, like Robert says, Russell needs Pickens. You mean Pickens is going to be a solid support for Russell. And he's saying without Pickens, Russell's going to fail and Pittsburgh's going to lose. I don't know if I go that far with it, but that's
Robert Pickens was out last game and they still win.
Right.
Well, Coach Tomlin is tired of his immaturity.
Yeah, it was his hammy is a little right now. So but still I like the run game. I think if there's a little bit of a weakness, and I can't even call it a weakness for Philadelphia. Their linebackers are a little light in the britches, and Pittsburgh's got a big running game. So I think over time they're going to wear them down in that regard. But other than that, it's going to be a close game and a very low-scoring game. But I like the Steelers to win this game.
All right. Yeah. And so with that, guys, I think, did we get through all our picks there, J-Train?
Well, I mean, no, there were a couple more, but I mean, we could call it short. The Bears and the Vikings, I like the Vikings, and the Falcons and the Raiders. I like the Desmond Ridder revenge game here. I think it's an upset. I think the Raiders win at home.
Yeah, that's going to be big. I don't know if that's going to be enough to save Antonio Pierce. I don't know if there any saving him at this point.
If the owner likes him, he'll be back. That's all it comes down to. It's not wins and losses anymore with the Raiders. If the owner likes him, maybe the owner's looking Mark Davis for an excuse to keep Pierce, hoping he wins a couple of games so he could stick with him.
Yeah, well, guys, it's been a great show. We're going to cut this particular show a little short, but we are going to play a refresher of the NFL download between J-Train and I last Sunday night, where we talked about this previous week's games. And join J-Train and I tonight at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back on to give you the repost of all today's action and a preview of tonight's Sunday night game. James and Jack, it's been an amazing Sunday. We wish everybody a great Sunday, and we will see you in a couple of minutes. And J-Train and I will see you tonight at 7 p.m. Good night, everybody.
You're watching National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasts, 70 shows, and a 3.5-star rating on Roku TV.